Hi guys, welcome to Irish Footy Vlogs. Delighted to welcome Sean Mahon with me today. And Sean Mahon, I suppose you're known as the Motherwell Kid Collector. Was that true?
The Irish boy with all the jerseys. That's what they call me over here. So yeah, thanks very much for having me on, Keith. Yeah, I do. I collect, as you can probably see behind me here, I collect the Motherwell jerseys and also the Republic of Ireland ones as well. So yeah, I've been collecting now for a couple of years. And I'm not originally from Motherwell, as you can obviously tell from my accent, but moved out here a couple of years ago and just started coming along to some of the games and just started collecting some of the jerseys as well. It's been brilliant. As you can imagine, having this accent in the west of Scotland, everyone just assumes you're going to be a Celtic fan. So I think the fact that I'm not kind of helps me kind of stand out a wee bit, and it's helped me make kind of loads of friends here in the area. So.
Yeah, that's true. It's a bit refreshing, that, to be fair, as well, isn't it? You've obviously a keen eye on the Irish League, the League of Ireland as well, don't you? And you keep an eye on it. But we're here, obviously, to chat about former League of Ireland players that are playing in Scotland at the moment. And recently, obviously, there's been a bit of an influx. The last year, Jamie McGrath, Conor McCarthy moved to St. Mirren for 30 grand, by the way, combined, which looks like a steal now, doesn't it?
Bargain.
Absolute bargain. Dylan Connolly is obviously there. He came from the League of Ireland as well. And you've got obviously Jake Carroll, who's left these shores a long time, but he's with Motherwell now. He's former Pats. Jace Kabia has recently moved to Livingston and managed to get in a game or two. And we've got Aaron McAniff, who's with Hearts in the Scottish Championship. What's been the general, I don't know, consensus, if you like, of these players coming over? You know, do Scottish fans see them as a bargain, or do they kind of look at them and they're a little bit, they're coming from the League of Ireland, you know, are they any good? Or what's the general vibe, I suppose?
Yeah, it's a bit of a weird one because when you kind of say League of Ireland over here to most people, Keith, they kind of automatically assume you're talking about Northern Ireland, because you'd have a lot of kind of ties between the Northern Irish clubs and the Scottish clubs here, especially when it comes to kind of like, we'll say, the early stages of like the Europa League qualifiers. We'll say like Motherwell, we played Glentoran, we played Coleraine just back to back there back in August. So I don't think there's a huge knowledge of kind of League of Ireland in Scotland in general. But I think, you know, some of the players you've mentioned there and some of the success that they're starting to have, it really is kind of getting a bit of attention. I think St.Mirren in general, I mean, they're pretty much, she's about a half an Irish team at the moment, and Jim Goodwin there from Waterford managing them. Do you know what I mean? There's a bit of breakthrough there. And I think the big one for me is going to be Aaron McAniff. I mean, all the good work he did at Shamrock Rovers there last season. I know Hearts are down in the Championship at the moment, but they're going to spring back up to the Premier League now. You know, I would imagine they'll be up next season. And someone like him, if he gets a bit of a shine on him, do you know what I mean? It's just going to do well for, you know, just League of Ireland players in general. I think it'll just open up a lot of people's eyes to what we have back home.
Yeah, and I was thinking this before as well, that a lot of Scottish clubs, I actually said this before a couple of years ago, that I'm surprised that Scottish clubs don't dip into the League of Ireland market a little bit more, because you can get players there of the same quality that you spend less on in general, I think. Anyway, and if it's 200 grand, that's one of the highest ones. Still quite cheap, to be honest with you, for Hearts, especially if he does well. As I said before, McGrath and Conor McCarthy combined were 30 grand, which is just unbelievable, to be fair. And McGrath and McCarthy have had good impacts at St. Mirren as well. Is that something, do you think, that scouts should be looking to? Probably the Irish League as well, Northern Ireland as well in many ways, but should they be looking at the League of Ireland a lot?
No, absolutely, Keith. I think like what you tend to get in Scotland in general, what I've noticed, I'm not pretending to be any expert here, but a lot of the clubs will say like your Motherwells and a lot of the kind of the outside of the old firm clubs, they'll have kind of really good youth systems themselves. So they're taking in kind of local young lads and they're making, you know, really good success stories there. I mean, I need only look at David Turnbull, who's beyond at Celtic now, doing amazing things, and he's going to go on again. Do you know what I mean? To be a huge name, and he's come through the Motherwell youth system. So no, there is kind of an already, I would say, a ready-made pool there of kind of Scottish talent that comes through the leagues that you tend to see. And then kind of elsewhere, like what you tend to get a lot with clubs like, we'll say like a Motherwell, is you'll get boys that are down in, we'll say maybe League Two or something like that down south, and they're just not cutting through. Whatever it is, it's not working for them. And then they can kind of come up to Scotland and revitalise their careers a wee bit. Because, you know, at the end of the day, like if you're toiling away down in League Two and nothing's happening for you, you come up to Scotland, you know what I mean? You get on, we'll say Sky Sports or something like that against a Celtic or a Rangers. That's a pretty big shop window to be in. So that tends to be kind of what makes up the mix of the players that we get through here at the moment. And then it's just your kind of usual mix of players coming in from abroad. But they're just, there hasn't really been, I'd say, much of an eye on League of Ireland players at the moment. But as I said, I can definitely see that changing, especially as you said, there's some of the bargains that have been got over the past while. You know, you'll start to see more coming over, I would assume.
Yeah, I mean, in the last few years, I've noticed in the League of Ireland, a lot better quality of young player coming through.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
Jay's Capia there, who's gone to Livingston. He was in and out of Shelbourne last season. He wasn't even a first team player, and he's already got a couple of games for Livingston. Now, a lot of Shelbourne fans will say that he should have been first team, like a lot of skill, and there might have been a falling out with the manager. I'm not really too sure. But there's a lot of players of his kind in the League of Ireland as there is now. And, from their point of view, Scotland offers something different to what League Two does in England, as an example, as you mentioned there, because you can play against Celtic and Rangers, huge clubs, and in general, they have fans. You know what I mean? In general, the facilities of Scotland are a lot better than the League of Ireland in terms of stadiums, etc., etc. Obviously, they're getting more wages and all that kind of thing as well, obviously. But Scotland, I think, is often a good gateway as well. We saw how Wes Hoolahan used that as a gateway to England. Maybe if Wes Hoolahan went to a League Two club initially in England, he might have struggled. Who knows? We don't know really. But it worked well for him at Livingston. He got his move, I think, initially to Blackpool, I think it was, and obviously on to Norwich, and he was excellent at Norwich, and probably was underused by Ireland as well overall, even though he got about 49 caps, but a lot of them were sub appearances. But it's proven to be a good gateway, I think, for Irish players, hasn't it? And Jake Carroll, the guy at Motherwell, obviously he's playing at Motherwell now. He's now 29. I couldn't believe it when I checked that this morning. Felt like yesterday he was at St. Pat's. I don't know where time goes. But he's been in England as well, and he's kind of moved between from club to club in England. He's settled now.
He's a
Motherwell.
classic example, actually, Keith. He came up to us from, I think it was Cambridge he was at, and he came up to us in 2019. And, one of them, when you're kind of doing a bit of digging around on him, you're kind of trying to get a bit of a vibe from the fans, and there wasn't kind of much fanfare or anything. Obviously, him being Irish, I was totally invested in him from day one. I was like, this is the man that's going to do great things for us. And to be honest with you, he's just been revitalised since he's come up here. He plays at left back at Motherwell here. I believe at Pats, was he more kind of midfield or in and around there?
He played, midfield, centre back. He played, and I think he was left back at one stage as well. But he has that versatility in his game,
But he's been brilliant for us. It was one of them, as I said, I was like the one-man Irish fan club from last season. And then he got injured at the end of the last season there, and he was out for a while. And it was only really when he was out, I think, that the majority of Motherwell fans realised what an impact he does make for us. And he's come back now, and he's been absolutely flying. He's just one of those. He's got loads of pace. He gets up and down. He's actually one of our kind of free kick specialists, if you believe, as well. So he's got a lot to offer. And just a really nice guy as well. I mean, great thing about a club like Motherwell, do you know what I mean? I'm only down the road from Fir Park, the stadium, and you see the players kicking around all the time. Just just a really nice guy, and obviously great to see, an Irish player doing well over here.
Yeah, I seen an interview with him there a while ago, and he was saying how it's great playing at the likes of Ibrox and Celtic Park and places like that. It's fantastic for players. Other players as well, like Darrell Horgan was obviously at Hibs for a couple of years. Owen Doyle was at Hibs for a couple of years. Richie Foran, do you remember him? He was at Motherwell, but you might remember more from Inverness because he retired, I believe, 2016, and he was at Motherwell 2007. He played for Shelbourne before, and he was very good over here. And I wasn't surprised how he did well over in Scotland. He seemed to kind of make a living for himself over in Scotland as well. He got attached, didn't he? He managed Inverness there for a while as well.
He was at Calvin managing for a while.
Do you remember him playing at all?
It'd be a bit before my time. I mean, Keith, to be honest with you, I moved out to Motherwell about 2.5 years ago, and the only thing I knew about it, I was coming from Glasgow, the only thing I knew was the club. So it was more just kind of gravitating towards that, really. And then I've been doing my kind of research backwards, and a lot of that has been from, as you can see behind me, collecting all the jerseys and then just kind of meeting local fans and kind of filling in the gaps, like some of the older boys who tell you stories about being all around Europe in the 90s and stuff like this, and just kind of filling in the blanks and finding out, we'll say, some of the Irish players that have played here over the years. I mean, geez, I think even Killian Sheridan was here, one of his million clubs that he's been at. Do you know what I mean? There's been just a couple of fellas like that over the years that have kind of popped up here and there.
Yeah, he's been all over the world, to be fair. I think that was it. He just decided, look, I'm playing Israel one year, I'm playing Pakistan the next year, or whatever.
Back to suitcase, and he goes.
It works for him. Somehow it works for him. He obviously gets itchy feet. I suppose the most successful player, you'd have to say, was probably Paddy McCourt, to be honest. Absolute Derry legend. Very George Best stylistically, and even at one point looked a bit like George Best with his head of hair, didn't he? But he moved to Celtic, and he took to it very well, I have to say. A lot of people were surprised at Celtic. Actually, a lot of Irish fans who wouldn't have watched the League of Ireland much were very shocked when he came to Celtic and performed, because this lad was at Derry City, like, you know. You had a bit of that into it. But no, he was very good at Celtic as well. Do you remember much of him playing for Celtic? Or
Yeah, I mean, the name rings a bell. I mean, it's always good to see someone from Derry having a successful time at Celtic. I mean, you can't really say that too much now in the year 2021, but these things happen. But yeah, no, it's again one of those names. But like, what I would just hope is that we continue to get more of them. Do you know what I mean? Like, people starting to come through. I do think, as I said there, Aaron McAniff to Hearts. I really think that's going to be a big one. Just any kind of chance he gets to shine. We know he's a good player. And now we'll get to see Scottish fans kind of get turned on to that as well.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see in the next year or two, I think, if they pick up more players in the League of Ireland. From a selfish point of view, you don't want to see it, but at the same time, you're not stupid. If a player has quality, they're going to move on at some point as well. You had a bit of a job for us as well. You were to name your top 3 Irish players that have played for Motherwell in your eyes. Who have you gone for? We'll start at number 3, Sean, actually.
Yeah, okay. Well, I've gone for a very obvious one, and I've already touched on him there. So, Jay Carroll obviously has, as I said, been a brilliant addition to the club here. As I said, I've been kind of rooting for him since day one. So I won't repeat what I said, but yeah, no, absolutely brilliant. We're not having the best of seasons at the moment. We lost 4-1 to Hamilton yesterday, but he's just one of them players back off injury. He's looking sharp, and it's exactly what we need at the moment. So he's my kind of straight in there with number 3. Number 2, then I've gone for Darren Randolph. I mean, obviously Irish legend, doesn't need much of an introduction, but he came to Motherwell in 2010 and would probably be associated with kind of the last kind of big push that we had into Europe and kind of some of the success we had there, including randomly a season where we got into Champions League qualifiers due to Rangers going into administration. But yeah, just one of those. I think even if you'd ask any kind of SPFL fan today to list their kind of top keepers of the last 10, 20 years, he'd be high up there. Do you know what I mean? He has such a brilliant reputation, did so well for the club, and yeah, just a brilliant player. And just as a funny aside, when I was moving out to Motherwell, obviously as I said, the only thing I knew was the football club. But all the boys that I work with were telling me I had to get myself a Furno, and I was like, "What the hell's a Furno?" So I did a bit of research, and turns out it's like a chicken roll that you get in Spar back home. Do you know what I mean? Just your standard kind of spicy chicken roll. But there's a wee cafe here in Motherwell that does them, and it's absolutely amazing. So I googled chicken Furno Motherwell, and the first result that came up in Google was Darren Randolph from Twitter saying, "You can't beat a chicken Furno out of the upper crust in Motherwell." And I was like, "Well, if Darren's endorsing it, then it must be good." Like, but no, just one of them club legends. He's still held in high regard here, and obviously went on to big things down south after he left. So yeah, that'd be my number 2, and then number 1, which might be a wee bit controversial for some of your viewers, because I don't think he was actually born in Ireland, but he did represent the Republic
I know. Can I guess?
a number of times. I'm sitting here wearing his player-worn jersey as well, so it'd be rude if I didn't. I'd have to go for Tommy Coyne.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like, for me, Keith, I mean, as a kid growing up, I mean, I was only 5 when Italia 90 came around, so I was kind of too young really to really take it in. But by the time USA 94 came, I was all in on it, all invested in the players, and I had my Dunn Stores jersey and everything. Do you know what I mean? Like, so for me, that's just a period that I'm so nostalgic for. And Tommy Coyne would have featured quite prominently there in the USA 94 squad. I mean, he's also considered one of the absolute legends here at Motherwell. I think he scored something like 57 goals in his time here. So one of the most kind of renowned kind of strikers we've ever had. Obviously did stuff at Celtic as well, but he'd be probably the top one. And again, I know he probably wasn't born in Ireland, but he obviously did the job for us at an international level. So I'll sneak him in there at number 1.
I know he has to count anyone that represented Ireland. Then you couldn't count an awful lot of players if that was the case.
And I think as well, I might be wrong with my stats here, but I think he's the only Motherwell player to have played at a World Cup while still being a Motherwell player. So I think he holds that kind of record as well. So yeah, as I said, I mean, he'd be one of the kind of the heroes here.
Not a bad record at all. Sean, before we go, do you want to tell us about your Instagram account as well? Quickly.
Yeah, so part of me moving out here and then getting kind of closer to Motherwell and going along to the games, I started kind of collecting the jerseys as well, because I've always been into kind of collecting sportswear, as you can see from all the stuff behind me here. So I started at 1991, Keith, which would have been the last year that Motherwell won the Scottish Cup. Let's see if I can. That'll be this jersey here, which is kind of the iconic Admiral sportswear jersey from back in 1991. So I kind of started there. Yeah. I started there as my reference point. I've kind of gone through, and it's been a real journey just meeting people, buying stuff off local lads. And I set up a kind of an Instagram account to kind of document that really, and just kind of as a way of reaching out to other fans. So yeah, if you want to get me on Instagram, it's at Steelman Sean. So that's all one word. And yeah, it's pretty easy to find. I've got the tricolour with the Motherwell badge on it, so it's pretty easy to find there.
That's brilliant. So I'll throw that in the description as well. So thanks, Sean, for coming on. Really enjoyed that, and fair play to you. Thanks very much.
No worries. Thanks very much, Keith. Cheers.